The man, the myth, the legend. We're here today to discuss Christopher Nolan, British filmmaker, longtime writer-director, with a new film on the horizon.
So close.
Yeah, very highly anticipated summer blockbuster, The Odyssey, garnering a lot of controversy at the moment.
I am so scared, man.
But apprehensively, I'm excited for it.
Very excited, yes.
It kind of spurred us on to do a bit of a retrospective on Nolan's filmography, and we're going to do a rankings of his film. We're going to go from bottom to top. It's, when you really deep dive into his filmography, you realize there's a lot of bangers in here. There's a reason he's so highly regarded, because there is even the lowest on my list are still pretty damn good movies. So
yeah, there's always something worthwhile to experience in a Nolan film. He has made a name for himself in the past decade and a half as the one big name director that can still attract a huge crowd into a movie theater, which is a rare sight. And even trying to get tickets for The Odyssey, the first week, basically all booked in the theater I usually go to.
Is this for the IMAX screening?
It's not IMAX actually, it's 70 millimeters because I don't think there's an IMAX screen near me that I can go to, but it's a huge screen anyway, so I'm happy with the compromise, I guess.
Yeah. And like you said, he's one of those guys. There was a period of his career, I felt like, where he kind of picked up the mantle of Spielberg in the sense that he was making these big summer blockbuster type films, but they're also thought-provoking and they were commercially successful but also critically successful. Yeah, he had that period where he was just on top of the world, I feel like. And I love so many of them. So let's get into this, Tommy.
Let's do it.
So now we're going to go, like I said, from bottom to top of our favorites. So we'll sort of use my ranking list as a framework, and I'll say what my pick is for that rank, and we'll see if yours coincides, and if it doesn't, we'll meet where your one does, and we'll go more in depth into the movies. But first things first, I have a confession to make. There is one film on this list I have not seen, and it's Christopher Nolan's feature debut, Following. But I know you have.
Shame.
So you can let me know, where is this on your list?
So I put it at the bottom. I mean, it's a good film. It's Christopher Nolan's directorial debut, as you mentioned, from 98. But yeah, I put it at the bottom because I didn't want to spend too much time discussing this in this retrospective. It's a fascinating place to start when looking at the evolution of his career, but it's not necessarily representative of what Nolan is now. And the story itself is relatively straightforward, but you can still see early traces of Nolan's creative identity in the movie. There's themes that Nolan would come back to in subsequent films, like, fascination with the theme of identity and obsession, the unconventional narrative structure of the film. So, it's a very impressive achievement for a first-time filmmaker, absolutely. I was gonna say, it sits between a real movie and a student film.
Okay.
But,
I did watch a trailer for it, and it looked very, rough and ready. Like, it looked very I was surprised how sort of low budget it did look.
I mean, it's literally again, it got a distribution. It's technically a real movie, but it has a lot of those elements that you would, we studied film, we've done a 1,000 different short films and longer productions, in many different roles, and we've seen very good ones, we've seen horrible ones, including the ones that we made. So we know what separates a good real film from something that was made by a very inexperienced filmmaker.
Yeah.
And I think this film, you can see that Nolan knows what he's doing, but it's still very early in his career. And you can feel that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, but it's I suppose the one thing I was interested to hear about this is whether there was any Nolanisms in this film, and it sounds like there's some core elements which go on to be part of his sort of repertoire.
Yeah, some of the editing, the choice of the montage, the way Nolan likes to edit stuff together.
Because the two films I told you earlier, I did myself a Nolan double bill last night. I did. I watched
Nice.
it Insomnia because I hadn't seen it before, and then I watched Memento because I felt like I needed to refresh my memory because I'd forgotten the film, ironically.
Nice.
And it was good to see that even in, because those were his other earliest films, that the Nolanisms are very strong in those films too, and you'd start to really see the auteur being created
Yeah.
with what he does and what he likes to do with his filmmaking.
And that's what makes Nolan, so beloved and also, often criticized, because a Nolan movie is unmistakably a Nolan movie, with a couple of exceptions that we will get to in our ranking. But before we move on to greener pastures, I wanted to mention a fun little detail that always made me laugh about Following. There's this unintentional Easter egg in the film that's
Right.
kind of amusing in hindsight. Basically, one of the characters in the film has a Batman plaque
I
on
knew
their
you were going to
doors.
say Batman. Yeah.
And knowing that Nolan would direct the Dark Knight trilogy, it's one of
He
those
knew.
funny
He
coincidences.
knew.
He knew it back then. If you listen to conspiracy theories, we live in a simulation and everything is scripted or whatever. Like they put it there to let us know. Yeah, but Following it's at the bottom not because it's unworthy of your time or it's a bad movie. It's a worthwhile debut. It offers a glimpse into the filmmaker that Nolan would become later on, but definitely not the best representation of his style.
I mean, if you've got any questions, then.
One or two.
It's so we'll go through to the next one on the list. So we have number 11, and for me, this is a tough film because it has a lot of, like, well, I say a lot. It's got some really high highs in it, and I think that's the case with a lot of even like Nolan's worse off projects. But number 11 for me is Tenet.
All right, I knew this. I knew you would say Tenet.
Is yours coincide?
For once, I agree. For once, we
Oh,
both put the same
fantastic.
movie.
Not just for the purposes of the structure of this review, but just it's good to see that we're aligned finally.
Yeah, it works out really well.
It's did you see this at the cinema? I saw this at the cinema.
Yes, I did. It was, I think, the first movie I saw in cinemas after COVID times.
Okay. Oh God, yeah, it's that long ago.
They reopened the cinemas for like 2 months, and then we were back into lockdown for a while.
And then Tenet shut them back down straight away. Yeah, like I said, it's a weird one, this one. It's you're getting a lot of long-time collaborators coming together, and I feel like I remember when the trailer for this one came out, I was like, wow, this is going to be the one. This is the Inception Part 2 or whatever we're going to get here.
Yeah.
And a great cast. Hans Zimmer's back, which is Nolan's secret weapon, I find, in a lot of these movies.
Oh my God, yes.
And the premise was very Nolan-y and interesting, like another sort of heist, but with a sci-fi time element added to it. Had all the makings to be fantastic, and wow, that opening sequence in the opera house,
yeah, really impressive,
is unbelievable, and the score is fantastic. And I remember sitting at the cinema watching that, and I was like, wow, we're in for a crazy good ride here, and I thought this was going to be top tier Nolan. But the plot starts to kick in, and the expository dialogue starts to kick in, and this film starts falling apart very quickly.
Yeah, it's unfortunately, I feel like for me, Tenet is, and we're gonna discuss what Christopher Nolan's greatest strengths are in later movies that we're gonna talk about. And here, all of these strengths become weaknesses. For some reason, like almost every trademark element that made Nolan so distinctive is present in a bad way. Like we have fractured timeline, we have very dense and complicated exposition and plot. We have, practical spectacle in, a very intellectually ambitious movie for, the kind of like blockbuster summer spectacle that it wants to be as well. And I don't think these elements come together in a very satisfying whole. The central concept, and we haven't discussed it yet, it's on paper, it's fantastic. You have this idea of objects and people being able to move backwards through time through this concept of like temporal inversion, I think they call it.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of like high concept science fiction idea that, Nolan was born to explore. That kind of, okay, let's explore this idea in a thriller, like spy movie setting. It's very grounded, but also crazy and, practical effects and huge action sequences. And there are moments where the concept delivers some big spectacle sequences towards the end that are quite memorable.
Yeah, particularly the car chase sequence that we go back to twice. We do it in reverse, and then we do it in forward time. Like, that was really well done, really well constructed.
It's just I feel like this is one of those movies. I love complexity in films, and Nolan has managed to balance the complexity of the storylines in previous films very well. But I think here, complexity is here for its own sake. And I never found myself emotionally invested in the film, and I understood the mechanics for the most part. No, on the first watch, I was lost.
Oh, for sure.
I felt really stupid.
It's that moment when we're towards the final act, when we're in that big ditch, and Aaron Taylor Johnson and Robert Pattinson are trying to explain everything that's going on to is it David Washington?
Yeah,
David Washington, John David Washington.
He's good. He's
good in it. I mean, he is called the protagonist, and that is what you get from him, really, because he, not a very memorable character for sure. But it's the film completely loses you at that point, and there's these big expository scenes in it, and you're like, you're working way too hard to make this make sense, and I'm still not sure whether it entirely does.
Yeah, instead of like enriching the story, the complexity of the mechanics of this time travel thing just obscures everything, and you find yourself trying to figure out the mechanics, and you lose any emotional connection that you have to the plot. And also, it doesn't help that, as good as he is, John David Washington, as you mentioned, is just called the protagonist. We never learn his name. And, Nolan has never been a filmmaker driven by character work. Like his characters
driven
are often...
by humanity. No, he's driven by style and entertainment.
It's about plot, it's about themes. He's very good at themes, and he's very good at like weaving stuff together in a very satisfying and cinematic way, but he's not a very character driven kind of like storyteller.
No, and this is highlighted probably the most in one of my favorite Nolan films that we'll get to later on, but it's a serious lack of... It's like, has Nolan ever met another human being in his life?
Or a woman? Yeah, I think in this specific case, the fact that John David Washington comes across as charismatic and suave and kind of like Bond inspired in certain moments is just down to the actor being able to elevate what on paper is a very boring and standard character that is just there for us to experience the mechanics of the plot through. Even someone like Robert Pattinson, I guess he has a little bit more character, even on paper, even in the way, his character is meant to be perceived, doesn't really come across as anything but like an exposition machine, or a character that you need to explain stuff to, so that the audience can be explained stuff to. Kenneth Branagh as the villain, very forgettable.
Oh man, for me, very memorable, but in all the wrong ways. I just remember that shocking Russian accent that he's doing.
Yeah,
and it's like, just get a Russian actor, for Christ's sake, or even like a Eastern European actor, for like, I never liked that stuff.
I watched this the first time I watched this. I watched it dubbed. And I don't think they bothered with the accents in the dub. It just spoke normally. He had like the...
It's fine, because Kenneth Branagh doesn't either at certain points. But like I said, off the bat, still some high highs in this one, and it's better. It's still better than most of the average kind of blockbusters that come out, I'd say, in terms of its like the creative endeavor behind it, and its originality at least. But definitely this is my lowest tier Nolan film. And along with one other, it's one that I just don't see myself ever really being enticed to put back on and rewatch.
Interestingly enough, I think on the subject of rewatching movies, I think this is one of the very few Nolan films that I actually liked less on a second viewing, because usually his films become richer once you understand how they're constructed. And
Yeah.
I think Tenet has the opposite effect. Like, knowing the twists beforehand didn't reveal like deeper emotional layers, or like it just highlights how much of the film is devoted to explaining itself. It becomes very boring once you know where it's going.
Yeah.
And even like the spectacle that usually is what makes these kind of movies worth to watch on a big screen, you know, like the sequence, the heavily advertised sequence with the real Boeing 747 crashing into a hangar. It's extraordinary that they did that practically, but it's not.
It's probably the least interesting set piece of the movie as well, let alone the overall aspect of it.
It's not very, like, I was very whelmed when I watched it in the theater. The more I think about this movie, the more I realize my issue isn't even about the difficulty in understanding what they were trying to achieve with the time inversion thing. Is that it's just, I don't care. If I don't understand something about Inception and I rewatch it and I have a newly found appreciation for the film, you know, everyone's happy because I get to rewatch an awesome movie. We'll get to Inception later on, I guess. But also, you know, I understand more about the plot and about the structure, about what they were going for with the, you know, dream within dreams within dreams.
Yeah.
But here, I don't feel compelled to learn more about this time inversion thing because it feels underdeveloped and like they don't even know. Like,
you don't care about the stakes of the characters either. John David Washington's little thing going on with like Kenneth Branagh's wife as well, and it's just it's so surface level. And there's some films later on which, like I said, will have this element of lacking good characters maybe, but the plot holds it up and the themes hold it up to the point, whereas then this one kind of falls flat when it comes to that one. So yes, Tenet, both at the bottom of our lists. And I imagine it'd be at the bottom of a lot of people's lists. I know people, but a lot of people hated that movie when it came out, and just was like, I didn't understand any of it. I couldn't hear anything because of the terrible sound design as well. So
oh my god,
it had a lot of issues, that one.
You want to crash a plane? Well, how big a plane?
But let's see if we line up again here, Tommy. I have a feeling we're not on this one.
Okay, let's try.
Let's swap it now, because we matched on that one. So you go on, give me your number 10 and see if it matches mine.
Okay, I put Insomnia at number 10.
Oh wow. Okay. Doesn't match with mine.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. No, it's not too far off, but it doesn't quite match with mine.
Okay, then let's hear yours.
So my number 10 is Dunkirk.
Ooh, spicy take incoming, I think. I mean, it's not that much higher on my list. It's on number 9. So
So it's literally this for me. Saw it at the cinema, and honestly, between Tenet, this one, and my other next one, it was very hard to pick sort of these last three, because I've seen this film twice now. I watched it again maybe in the last year and enjoyed it a little bit more on the second watch. But this one really suffers from all the things we've mentioned before. And it's kind of the point. You know, we have this World War II epic depicting the evacuation of Allied soldiers from Dunkirk through 3 interconnected stories. We have land with our soldiers on the ground, and we have the seafaring story with Cillian Murphy and Mark Rylance, and then we have Tom Hardy in the plane. And they all sort of converge at the end. Again, technically it's a masterpiece.
yeah.
You know, fantastic visually. All that stuff is on point, and again gives the recipe for something really special here. But, and like I said, maybe it's the point, but there's no characters really here. You know, Mark Rylance is probably the strongest element of a character we have, and Cillian Murphy too, but it didn't grab me. And I found myself quite bored in moments and being sort of pulled out of the story. I think it came out at a very similar time to 1917. I remember watching that one too and thinking Sam Mendes has done what you're trying to do. I feel like, you know, tell a war story framed around like a filmmaking technique or style, but you're still, at the end of the day, you're telling a story with an emotional core and characters that you can root for or root against or whatever. And yeah, Dunkirk doesn't have that for me. And on rewatch, I could enjoy the technical aspects, knowing that I'm like not going to be given much character stuff to work with here.
Yeah, no, I agree, because one of Nolan's greatest strengths has always been structure. You know, like he's best when his formal experimentation of like the film medium, he tries to use that to balance like an emotional core or like a story. In Memento, the structure serves the character, and the experience that you get is, you know, like we'll get to Memento later on, way later on, I hope, but you know, like in the Prestige, you know, the structure serves the themes of the story. And then, you know, like in Tenet, you have a structure that overwhelms everything else and leaves you with nothing of substance to latch onto as a viewer. And I think Dunkirk is better than Tenet for sure, but it falls into the same issue. It is near the bottom of my list for a very personal reason. I am not a huge fan of war movies, so like, you know, I would rather watch anything else from Nolan than Dunkirk. But as a war movie, I think it's a very good one. You know, it's a historical event as a thriller, and I do love the structure. In this case, if Tenet was a bit self-indulgent and over-relying on the gimmick, here we have these three perspectives. We have 1 week on the beach, we have the story on the sea, and that takes place over 1 day aboard civilian rescue boats, and then in the air with Tom Hardy's characters, and it's 1 hour. And I think that is really cool. But again, Nolan wants the gimmick, and it forgets about making interesting characters. And I feel like in this case specifically, it's fine that he does that, because it's a war movie and it's a historical drama, and you want to capture this specific moment in time, and each storyline operates on a different time scale, and Nolan gradually weaves them together, and it's really cool to see how he does that technically. As you mentioned, like technically it's a very interesting film, but it's a very cold movie as well. Like it's just that Nolan is fascinated by tension and by ideas, and he's exceptional at constructing narratives that build toward a climax, because he's very good at the montage, is very good, like, and even like the score is usually used to amplify those moments. And you know, like you're using a real historical event, and Nolan also chooses to focus, you know, not on like big, larger than life historical personalities, but like on smaller, regular people. So like the atmosphere is really cool, like visually the film is stunning, but yeah, it's just
like you say, I think like cold and clinical and sterile are very like apt descriptions of this when it comes to a like on an emotional level of a movie.
Yeah, it's just extraordinary craftsmanship applied to a real historical event, and you know, it proves that Nolan is really good at creating like this tension without relying on dialogue or like intricate characters. He just puts you in a scene, and the music and the vibes do the rest, and the filmmaking does most of the work. So technically really, really cool, astonishingly looking, but just it's not the type of experience that I gravitate towards, like personally. So even though it's really good, I think I've only seen it like twice, and I'm not really curious to see it again.
And it's like you said, it's, you know, we reviewed Civil War on the channel a while back when it came out, and it wants to do what Civil War did in a sense, and to be like almost like you're a fly on the wall. This is almost like a documentary style.
Yeah, looking at Cap and Tony fighting over the
But then,
Sokovia
you know,
Accords.
then we're also trying to weave in some of the more film elements of it, with Mark Rylance and his sons and Cillian Murphy and all that stuff, and it's kind of half in, half out, and it's almost like, Nolan, if you want to commit, you know, don't worry. Your characters don't even have to say anything. You just shoot this fake documentary that you want to make.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's, I think, deservedly so. But then some people really love this movie. They really laud this as one of their favorite Nolan films. So it gets a mixed bag, this one.
Yeah, it's cool, but
Not quite my tempo. It's all good. No worries. Here we go.
On to the next one. Again, I don't think we're going to align on this one.
All right.
But maybe we will, because we've been close so far. But my number 9 is the most recent project, Oppenheimer.
Oh my God, really? No, I put Oppenheimer a little bit higher than 9. Yeah.
This isn't to say Oppenheimer's a bad film. There's a portion of Oppenheimer which I love. There's probably about an hour of Oppenheimer which I really thoroughly enjoyed.
Okay.
It's kind of a film of two halves, really. And especially in that latter half of the movie, well, I'll just do a little bit of a setup in case people haven't seen it, but I'm sure everyone has. But it's Christopher Nolan's latest project, came out in 2023, a biographical drama about physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, chronicling the creation of the atom bomb during the Manhattan Project. And the film sort of then deals with the sort of political and personal repercussions of the discovery and the inevitable sort of usage of the atom bomb. And, picked up Academy Awards. I think Nolan won Best Director for this one.
Yeah.
And again, technically fantastic. The hour that I love is when we go to Los Alamos and they build the secret facility and they're drafting in all the scientists and they're trying to figure out how to make the H-bomb and the atom bomb. And, and there's this sort of underlying tension that, the Germans are going to get there first. And, whoever gets there first will be the winner and the ultimate superpower. And sort of, up until once that test got, that amazing test scene happens.
Mhm.
After that, the film really drops off for me.
Really?
For me, we don't feel the repercussions of what the atom bomb did to the world enough. And I get it because
Because it focuses on the American side of things, and we don't really see.
Yeah, and it's a personal story. So we're focusing on Oppenheimer's reaction to it rather than like the world or what actually happened. But and maybe this is the dumb popcorn muncher in me. But like I wanted to see the bomb go off, and even if it was a dream sequence, which Nolan is very akin to doing,
Yeah.
we see the bomb go off and we see it, big practical effect, eviscerate buildings, the model little town of Hiroshima they could have made, and then have Oppenheimer wake up, and I don't know, maybe that sucks, that idea.
You wanted the ending of Pearl Harbor by Michael Bay?
Not quite like that. I just feel like after such a long build up to making the bomb,
Yeah.
to see it, even a glimpse of it going off, and just like, it's the most destructive force of nature, force of man.
Yeah.
That's ever been created on this earth. It changed the world forever, still continues to affect the world. I didn't feel the gravitas of it.
What you're suggesting is what was expected.
Yeah, you could tell me, Tommy, I'm a stupid popcorn muncher.
I mean, that's what you said. But I feel like that's the expected thing that Nolan elegantly decides not to do, because we know what the repercussions of his creation are gonna be for the wars, and so he stays with the characters. He makes it a very personal story, and actually the film becomes smaller after the first test. We know what happens next, when the bomb is gonna be used in the war. So I disagree with you. I think this is a very good movie. I think this is one of those rare cases where the movie in a filmmaker's filmography that receives all the critical acclaim, all the Oscars, all the industry recognition, actually is the one that deserves it. And
okay, well, it must be very high on your list.
I mean, it's not that high. It's definitely not my favorite Nolan film, but I think it's one of his best because it feels like the culmination of everything he has been building towards throughout his career, and it's the more mature film in terms of the storyline that he decides to tackle. It's based on a book. There's a lot of stuff that he has to make work. The cast is extraordinary.
The cast is extraordinary, but do you not think we still have the same character problems here as we've been mentioning before? I think not for Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer. Emily Blunt does a good job too, but I think she kind of raises her character up but by her performance, and I think Downey Jr. does a similar thing, but the rest of I don't know. I just feel like it becomes so dry and so dense in that second half.
I mean, that's Nolan for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the supporting cast is distractingly stacked with famous faces.
It's like Topher Grace is in it for like 2 scenes, I think.
Matt Damon, Rami Malek, Casey Affleck is in this.
I'm glad you reminded me as well, because I thought Matt Damon is really poor in this. I don't get the threat of him. I don't get the charisma on screen from him. It just feels like, oh, they've just put Matt Damon in a general's military uniform, and that's him. And yeah, I thought he was really disappointing in this.
Okay, since we are on the cast and the characters, Nolan is not great with characters, but when he has to work with historical figures like he does here, that's where we have like a very memorable performance. I thought, Cillian Murphy delivers one of his greatest performances. He's brilliant, he's ambitious, he's conflicted. Kitty Oppenheimer, Emily Blunt, she's very, she's also very memorable. She's intelligent, but she's also uncompromising. And like, we're gonna complain a lot about Nolan, the way he writes or directs or like portrays female characters in general. They're very flat and one note and one dimensional.
Yeah.
And so someone like Kitty Oppenheimer, I think, is him being like, see, I can do it. I can actually portray like an interesting female character on screen. She's one of the most memorable parts of the movie for me. Robert Downey Jr. is just, I don't know, like, this is a very restrained performance, is very subtle. I think he's really brilliant in this one.
Yeah, me too. I thought he was fantastic in this.
So, like, maybe it's just the performances and like the spectacle of it, but I do think this is the kind of movie that Christopher Nolan was meant to make, because he's, as you mentioned, he's not great with characters, but he loves a historical thing.
Yeah, I see. I think this is too character driven and sort of an ensemble cast, I think, to be like you said, this is the film he was meant to make. And I think it's not. I think genre films is where he shines best for me. It's when he adds his own sort of style and elements to a more genre type movie, like what we said, adding the time elements to an Inception, making a heist movie and turning it into this sort of Nolan-y idea. I think that's where he revels best. And for me, also, I think the second half, or like the after the bomb goes off in Oppenheimer, we have hit the pinnacle of stakes in the movie, right?
Yeah.
We've built up the tension, we've hit a real peak, and then dealing with whether Oppenheimer is a communist or not in Congress, that for me is so unimportant in terms in contrast to what we
But that's what they were talking about, right? Like, that's what they were caring about at the time, instead of like the lives that they were being lost. It's like, oh, is he an enemy of the state? It's actually compelling. I don't know. I feel like that's the point.
It makes sense, and it's true to life, right? But it's that's why films don't they take sort of sometimes liberties with the truth, or they add things in or change things in, because it's, I don't know, for me as a structure, and we really compliment Nolan on his structure. For me, the structure just did not work. We brought me up to the peak of the movie, and then we have another like hour and a half of where we're kind of, I don't know.
I think for me, it was an interesting movie because I usually don't really like biopics for the reasons you've mentioned, that usually they're either very boring because they adhere to the life of someone that wasn't made to be a movie, or they make up everything about the story of this person. And so what's the point? I should just watch a documentary if I'm interested in this person.
Yeah, and I agree. I hate it when films portray themselves as like historically accurate or whatever, and they completely take liberties with the truth. So
I guess for me, it was so surprising that this movie, despite being the type of movie that I never want to watch, maybe it's because I'm also a popcorn muncher, but like, it's not the type of movie that I really gravitate towards, like war movies. But this one is surprisingly entertaining. I think that's what impressed me most about it. It's like how on paper this shouldn't be a mainstream blockbuster, but it was. It's a 3-hour historical drama about political hearings and the development of the atomic bomb. And that sounds like the sort of film that many audiences, including myself, would assume to be slow and inaccessible. And instead, Nolan manages to somehow turn it into a very gripping movie. And I never found it to be overlong. The film flies by. One aspect that initially threw me off about the film is the rhythm. Like, the first 40 minutes, I think, almost feel like an extended montage. The editing is relentless. There's music underneath every scene.
Yeah.
But then you understand what Nolan is doing. And once you fall into the rhythm of the film, the style becomes absorbing.
I do like the point you make, and I think and it needs to be commended. I think this film made $1 billion or over $1 billion at the box office. To get mass audiences to come see an Oppenheimer biopic is incredibly impressive, and I think that's down to Nolan, and obviously down to word of mouth. For me, just when I was doing this ranking, and we mentioned this up front about entertainment value and film quality, and they are kind of separate. I will accept that Oppenheimer is a better movie than some of the films I have higher up on this list. But in terms of
this is our personal ranking.
Rewatchability and entertainment value, I have to put it this low, unfortunately.
I think for me, maybe it ranks a little bit higher just because of how much of a cultural event it was.
Yeah.
And I think that's really remarkable, and it has to do with Christopher Nolan's legacy. Like for me, like I go to the cinema almost every week. As I mentioned before on this channel, like most of the time screenings are relatively empty. Maybe there's a handful of people in the room, and that's simply the reality of movie going in modern day. And with Oppenheimer, I went to the cinema with like 10 friends, and that never happens. Like, how many times can you count, like in the last 10 years, where you went to the cinema with like a pack of people and they were all excited about watching a movie? Some of the people that came with me to that screening, I wouldn't expect them to be interested in a 3-hour historical drama about the Manhattan Project, but they were there and they were enjoying themselves. It's not a superhero movie, it's not a sequel, it's a historical drama based on a book, and I don't know, I think that's remarkable. And I'm happy that a movie like this made that much money, because we need more movies like this to make money for art to survive.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably what got him so much funding for the Odyssey as well. Just, and I think Oppenheimer will get him whatever the hell he wants to ever do for the rest of his career. But
Good on him.
Wanted to, it's number 9 on my list, but it's still a good film, and I still enjoyed it.
I mean, I think outside of Tenet, I don't think there's any bad movies like that, like a movie that you would consider like just utterly bad in his filmography.
Yeah, they're all worth watching. Even Tenet's got some elements that are worth watching. So we'll move on to the next one.
All right.
Which you have mentioned already. My number 8 is Insomnia.
Okay.
Wait, you had this as your number
10? Yeah.
Okay. Probably one of his lesser known movies. It's a detective thriller, came out in 2002. A veteran detective played by Al Pacino investigates the murder of a teenage girl in a small Alaskan town. He's nearing the end of his career. We get the sense that he has been involved in some kind of nefarious activities. Him and his partner are under investigation for some fiddling they did with a previous investigation. So that's sort of the underlying tension as they go on this manhunt to catch the serial killer, which is played fantastically by Robin Williams. And yeah, I only watched this for the first time last night, so it's very fresh in my mind.
Nice.
So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And but maybe you didn't. I assume you still liked it.
I mean, I still enjoy it, and the reason why it's near the bottom of my list, it has nothing to do with like the film overall quality. I think it's just that it's the least Christopher Nolan film in his filmography, even more so than Following. It's the only feature film Nolan directed without receiving a writing credit, even when collaborating with other writers, mostly Jonathan Nolan, his brother. He's always had a significant hand in like writing the actual story of the movie.
Yeah.
While here, it's adapting a pre-existing Norwegian film. It's someone else's screenplay, and that immediately makes the film feel different from the rest of his filmography. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but in ranking Nolan films, I feel like more than anything else, Insomnia feels like a really well-made studio thriller.
Yeah. This could be Villeneuve, this could be Fincher, this could be, and not to say like it's as good as like some of their thrillers that they've made, but it has that slightly generic sort of police procedural feel about it, and in terms of like visual style particularly, for sure.
It doesn't showcase the qualities that we know Christopher Nolan for.
There are some Nolanisms here though, for sure. It's probably a little bit more in the editing than anything else. Al Pacino's character is is going through insomnia. He's not been sleeping because he's dealing with the guilt of what he's done.
Yeah.
So on the chase for Robin Williams, he seemingly accidentally shoots his partner, who's going to come clean about a botched investigation they did on purpose to try and pin down this child killer.
Yeah.
And Robin Williams' character uses that. He sees Al Pacino shoot his partner, and Pacino decides not to tell anybody about this and blames it on Robin Williams. But Robin Williams knows the truth and gets a recording of him admitting that. So he's dealing with all this guilt and stress. So he doesn't sleep at all, and he keeps getting flashes of this murder he initially tried to cover up, and we keep cutting to this like white cloth that gets soaked in blood.
Yeah.
Very jarring edit, and it's very reminiscent of sort of some of Nolan's later movies. But yeah, quite basic. And I thought, I was like, oh, okay, when's, because I suppose another sort of Nolanism is plot twists.
Yeah.
And we have a plot twist in this one, but it's the most obvious plot twist you've ever seen coming. But, still maybe that's an element of Nolanism there too. When Pacino's partner is walking through the fog, they come out of the murderer's house into this woods, and 5 minutes earlier there was no fog there, and now it's the mistiest place you've ever seen in your life. He's like, hey, put your hands up, and it's not going to be the serial killer that he's about to shoot, and it's it's his partner basically.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, the characters are very well realized here.
Because he didn't write the script.
No, maybe that is like Al Pacino's character is very defined, and he has
It's so watchable. Yeah.
yeah, he has quite a nice arc in the story as well, like going from this dirty cop, and then I can't remember the actress's name, she's one of the detectives in Alaska who's helping him on the case, and she like really looks up to him because he's quite revered, and she at the very end is going to bury the evidence which will expose him, but he's like, his last dying words is, oh, don't turn like I did, and it's like, oh, that was good, and Robin Williams' character is fantastic in it. I really enjoyed this one.
He's always good, Robin. I love to see him. Yeah, I'd love to see him in like an unusual role for him as well. I'm not sure every aspect of the performance works perfectly.
Do you not think so?
But it's very memorable.
It's similar to when we did our Backrooms review.
1 hour photo, yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of, he gives a quite similar performance in that, but here he's like you almost fall for him at one moment until he reveals like what he did, and you're like, oh fuck, no, you aren't Robin Williams, you're a monster. You're a monster.
Is great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love this one. I'm glad the retrospective finally got me to watch this, because
nice.
It's really good. And yeah, for me, this is one that in a few years down the line I probably will go and rewatch. And whereas Tenet, Oppenheimer, I don't see it. I don't see it happening.
I mean, at least it's shorter for sure.
Yes.
It's a well-crafted thriller. There's very strong performances, and Robin Williams is very memorable. Al Pacino, and is always great. There's an unforgettable kind of like atmosphere with the Alaskan wilderness. It just doesn't feel like it's a quintessential Nolan film. It remains just a good Hollywood studio production. It's very watchable. It's very engaging. It's just not as Nolan-y. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on who you are. But it's a good movie. It's definitely a good movie.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Will. You can sleep when you're dead.
So now we're getting down to the real meat and potatoes of Christopher Nolan's filmography here. We're dealing with all the rest of these are kind of like 8 out of 10 sort of territory. So
yeah,
these were hard to pick as well. And I'm interested to see if we align on this one. So my number 7 is The Dark Knight Rises.
The Dark Knight Rises is my number 8.
Okay, nice. Good. This one needs little introduction. The finale of one of the greatest superhero trilogies ever made. 2002 Sam Raimi's Spider-Man really set off the superhero genre into another stratosphere, really. But I feel like Nolan's Batman's trilogy solidified it, and then has still influenced so much of the superhero genre we see today. I mean, if you'd asked me to make this ranking when Dark Knight Rises come out, half of the films would be disappeared off this list. But hypothetically, if you asked that age version of me Dark Knight Rises might be in the top 2 or top 3. I saw this at the cinema in Beijing, of all places. I was in China and I went to the cinema to see this, had to go watch it, and we got the worst seats. We all sat at the front row of this large cinema in Beijing, and I just remember me coming out of the cinema experience, and I was with my family, and we all looked at each other and were like, "Holy fuck!" Like, that was something special.
That was a redonkulous movie.
Yeah, and I think as you get older, you start to see through. There's a lot of plot holes in Dark Knight Rises. There's a lot of issues. But as a spectacle and as a finale to that trilogy, what a great movie. I still rewatch it very often now.
I mean, you have to close the trilogy, man.
Yeah.
If you watch one, you need to watch the other ones as well.
Exactly. And there's some top tier moments in it, of course. Top tier characters. Tom Hardy coming in as Bane. I remember people thinking it was going to be ridiculous or whatever, or, not liking this, how you do Bane in a real life Nolan setting. And yeah, this isn't Bane from the comics at all, but I love this interpretation of Bane, and it's one of the great superhero villains that we've had. Yeah. Do you feel the same about this one?
I mostly do. Can I just say off the bat, it's really gonna throw me off to talk about the Dark Knight trilogy in reverse chronological order. Spoiler alert. But it's also very Nolan-y as well, if you think about it. So it's perfect for this retrospective. But
after this one, we'll just jump to number 2, because fuck it, why not? It's Nolan.
So The Dark Knight Rises had one of the hardest jobs any sequel has ever faced, because it had to follow The Dark Knight. And I think almost any film would have struggled under those expectations. And I think that's one of the reasons it received such a mixed reception when it was released. But personally, I agree with you. I'm aligned with you. I've always liked it much more than most people seem to. Is it as good as The Dark Knight? No, it's definitely my least favorite out of the 3 Batman movies made by Nolan. But it's still a fucking awesome movie.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's just what I appreciate most is how this is fundamentally Bruce Wayne's story, which wasn't the case for The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight, we'll get to it later on. It's more of Gotham and Joker and Harvey Dent story. Batman is just kind of there.
And it kind of makes sense for this one, because this one circles back to a lot of Batman Begins elements. We bring back in sort of Ra's al Ghul and the League of Shadows, and it does feel full circle, and it feels right that we go back into sort of cementing the arc of Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Yeah, we have a lot of Bruce Wayne and very little Batman. Batman is kind of absent from the film for a big portion of it, and I think Bale really shines here. I think he gives one of his strongest performances as Bruce Wayne, a secluded old man who has to come back and kick ass.
Yeah, I love that.
Bane, I also like. I didn't love Bane. Unfortunately, the movie doesn't do a lot to make you love Bane, especially after in the climax. I think Bane kind of loses a little bit of his mystique.
The climax of the movie is a bit of a disaster, to be honest. But it's I know what you mean. They don't give you enough to love Bane, but as a comic book superhero genre villain, for the most part, because we did a more sort of in-depth psychological villain in Joker in the
this is a more physical threat.
Yeah, he is just a physical foil to Bruce Wayne in this movie, and it's his introduction in the plane sequence is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And the "do you feel in charge?" that line, it's so good. And the first fight he has with Batman in the sort of the underground sewage system, and he sort of reveals that he's under the Batcave and he's got all his toys. For the first hour and a half of that movie, you're like, oh my god, no, but there's no stopping this guy, and you really feel the threat, and the performance is good too, considering the voice and the lack of sort of face that we see. I think Tom Hardy really nails it.
And what about one of his most cold lines? When Gotham is ashes, then you have my permission to die. Like
It's, it's
some of the
great.
stuff that he says and the way he says it, so
So
memorable.
you learnt to adopt the darkness, whereas I was born in it. Yeah. Oh, there's so many epic lines in this.
I've always preferred the more exaggerated, like almost luchador version of Bane from the comics, and particularly the one in the Arkham games was really cool.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah. You know, you want to see Uma Thurman, and fucking that version of Bane from
No, not
Batman and
that
Robin.
one. Not that one, but like in a more grounded version of Batman, which the Nolan trilogy pretty much is a very grounded version of Batman. I think it works and he is fun. I just don't buy his connection to the League of Shadows. I think they made him into that just to go full circle, as you mentioned with the first movie. Some of the stuff that Nolan decides to do with the lore kind of annoys me, because I became obsessed with Batman after watching Nolan's Batman Begins, and I collected a bunch of the comics, and I know my shit about Batman, man. And so some of the stuff that he decides to kind of like change or adapt, like change is the wrong word because there's so many different versions of these stories, but I don't know, like I feel like so many of these things, like Talia al Ghul is such a cool character, and again, very flat and one-dimensional and uninteresting in this movie. Unfortunately, Marion Cotillard gives one of the worst death moments
Oh yeah,
in
I'm glad
history.
you mentioned. It is diabolical.
Is that the only take they had?
I cannot imagine what the other takes were like if that's the one they went for. But it's like I said, it does feel like, I don't know, maybe they rushed like a lot of the last act, and I don't know whether they filmed this chronologically, probably not.
Yeah.
But it's but like they have that sort of notorious scene as well where all the police officers come out from hiding and they fight Bane's crew, and they have
Yeah.
that big wide shot of the fight, and they are literally like walking into each other and like kiddie play fighting, and you're like, well, you need to tighten up these shots because the extras in the background are not working hard enough.
Yeah, no, the action, and I have never thought close quarter combat was his greatest strength as an action director.
No.
And the final fight between Batman and Bane should be one of the trilogy's defining moments, and instead it feels very underwhelming. It's staged in broad daylight, which you should never do with Batman. What were you thinking, Nolan? The choreography lacks impact, and like as you mentioned, like the extras are not doing a good job. There's that scene where Bane is repeatedly punching a concrete pillar, after Batman has already moved away. And it's such a strange moment. I guess he was mad. Like Nolan is exceptional with like large scale spectacle, but like set pieces needs to be like, again, we're gonna discuss this later, but like for example in the first Batman movie, Batman Begins, like the introduction of Batman is a very simple action sequence where we see the action from the perspective of the grunts on the ground. They are like unloading stuff from these crates, and he emerges from the shadow and he takes them down one by one, and it's really satisfying, it's really cool. And it ends with him on the car of one of the mobsters, I think it's Falcone, and he's like, I'm Batman, and it's so cool. And that's all you need. When you frame the action from Batman's perspective, then is where like Nolan shows his weaknesses as a director, like because I don't know, like there's not enough oomph. The fights are not as memorable, as cool, or like, they don't hit as hard as they should. Even when Bane breaks his back, I feel like that scene is cool, but like it doesn't, like you don't feel like the crackling of the bones, and like it's not as, I feel like in making it grounded and realistic, you lose some of the impact of these scenes.
Nolan's kind of always had that as a bit of an issue, and I think it's his desire, or maybe the studio desire, to have his films be so wide appealing. He wants to bring in the kids and the adults as well, and so his films never get like viscerally dark in terms of violence or gore or anything like that. And I think for the most part it's absolutely fine, but I do know what you mean. There's in a lot of It's kind of a similar issue I had with like Denis Villeneuve in the Dune films. It's like just to feel the weight of some of these action scenes, you need
Yeah.
to see, and you can do it creatively and not have loads of blood, and but still feel the weight of the actions. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Those Dark Knight Rises is filled with issues, but my God, is it so entertaining?
It is very entertaining. But my biggest problems with the movie aren't even that the choreography is lacking or that there's not enough violence for the kind of story that they're portraying. It's just logistics. Like, Nolan has always asked audiences to accept certain leaps in logic. That's true for Batman Begins. It's true for The Dark Knight. It's true for a lot of his movies. But here, these leaps become much harder to ignore. And I know that people say that this is a nitpick, but I don't care. It's not a nitpick. Bruce somehow escapes a prison on the other side of the world, crosses multiple international borders off screen without money or resources, returns to an isolated Gotham that is under military lockdown. They destroyed all bridges to get there. He doesn't have his gear. He's not Batman. He's just Bruce. And somehow he arrives exactly when the story needs him to stop the fucking bomb.
Yeah.
I don't need to see all of it. Just give me a little montage of him just stealing someone's documents and like boarding a plane. But I need to see him do stuff.
Give us something. Or he goes into the town and he grabs someone's phone and he calls up a contact, and there you go. He can get hold of his gadgets.
Yeah, you
but
bring back a
it's
character from a previous movie and it's like, oh yeah, I can pick you up or whatever.
It's absolutely ridiculous, that scene.
Gotham's entire police force enters the sewers and becomes trapped.
But then when we need them in the final fight, there's like a hundred or like thousands of other cops anyway. But there was a suggestion that there was none beforehand, and a lot of people criticize the final sequence where he takes the bomb away in the Batwing and somehow gets away from it. And
I'm fine with that.
That one, I don't have problems with that one. It's like, yeah, he ejected and left it on fucking autopilot, whatever.
I wish it's just editing, because in the film you see Batman in the cockpit seconds before the bomb goes off. Like, if they didn't show him in the cockpit so close to the bomb going off, I would have no problem with that. But like, it feels like they're trying to trick you into thinking that he's dead.
Yeah. Or when we see him in the cafe at the end with that across from Alfred, he should have like no skin, no hair left. He's completely scarred from head to toe, and he just tips his drink towards Alfred. It's like, don't worry, sir. It's all good. I'm a horrific mess of a man, but it's all good. It's and I quite like that ending sequence to the film as well. The whole him and Alfred, and he
I was about to say
gets with Anne Hathaway, Catwoman at the end. I think it's a very nice way to have a quite like a cheesy, happy Hollywood ending to this trilogy, and I think it worked well. I mean, maybe that's the wrong way to phrase it. It's because. And this is a bit of an issue with the film. The film wraps up a lot quite quickly as well, and it's like we jump to this plot thread, we wrap it up in that scene. We jump to this plot thread, and we wrap it up in that scene, and we do that for all the characters, and it does feel a little bit rushed, and it feels sort of a bit rushed to give us that, a Hollywood happy ending for everybody involved. But like I said, it's not a criticism for me. I like it.
You have that like big voiceover narration, and you see the statue of the Batman being unveiled in Gotham, and Robin kinda maybe picking up the mantle. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, of course, is Robin, but is grounded Robin in a Nolan movie, so we can't have Robin like walking around in his suit and fighting people.
We can't have a little boy running around in tight pants in these films. That just wouldn't work. What a great film, I think that Batman trilogy in general was some of my most watched films of all time.
Yeah. And also, we were kind of like discussing the movies in Nolan's filmography that we like the least, and I think a common through line was that the characters were poor and it was not a very emotionally involved film, like Dunkirk. But here, I think The Dark Knight Rises has a very strong emotional core, and that emotional core is Bruce Wayne's arc, which is very satisfying, and Michael Caine, again, as Alfred, is fantastic. It's a very ambitious movie. It's a very difficult movie to make based on the reception of the previous one, but even if it's flawed, I just love it to bits.
Yeah, couldn't sum it up better myself. Moving on to our final Nolan film of part 1 of this ranking, and I have Interstellar
Ooh.
as my number 6. Where does that rank for you, Tommy?
I mean, it's pretty close. I put it at number 7. I should do a little refresher of my ranking so far. I will put it on screen as well, if anyone's interested. So we have Following at number 12, doesn't really count. Then we've got Tenet at 11, Insomnia at 10, Dunkirk at 9, The Dark Knight Rises at 8, Interstellar at 7, and then Oppenheimer at 6. So I think all of the movies in this section we've discussed. So it's,
we don't differ too much, other than on that Oppenheimer one, really. Mine from bottom to top, just as a refresher: Tenet number 11, Dunkirk number 10, Oppenheimer number 9, Insomnia number 8, The Dark Knight Rises number 7, and now on to Interstellar at number 6. So we'll deep dive into this one, and I love this film. And again, kind of has some Dark Knight Rises issues with it in terms of maybe some plot
Nolan
holes or
issues.
some some Nolanisms. But again, I feel like we're repeating ourselves. Visually, what a spectacle! Visually, is one of the best sci-fi films ever made for me.
Oh my
God,
God.
It feels so realistic, and I know there was a lot of research done in terms of in constructing those like in space sequences. I suppose if you haven't seen it, just as to set it up.
You haven't seen Interstellar? What the fuck, man?
You haven't seen Interstellar and you're halfway through a Nolan ranking video? I mean, you're a special kind of person if you are this person I'm referencing.
We love you.
Here, but
Stay with us.
just to set it up. I mean, go out and watch this if you haven't, obviously. So in a future where Earth's becoming uninhabitable, a team of astronauts travel through a wormhole in search for a new home for humanity to go on a big expedition to colonize a different planet. The story, heavily sci-fi focused, with a lot of kind of emotional themes of family, loss, and sacrifice. Fantastic cast in this one, led by Matthew McConaughey, and again Anne Hathaway coming in. Alfred Pennyworth is, for some reason, he works at the space station now.
He's the head of NASA.
I'm gonna go work for NASA now, Batman. And Timothée Chalamet makes a little appearance in this, a very early appearance.
Oh,
from
yeah.
Timothée Chalamet. And this is where the secret weapon of Hans Zimmer is used, like
God.
the atom bomb in Oppenheimer. God, he creates a masterpiece of a score for this film. It's a score that I put on when I'm working all the time. This, last year I went to go see a 4-string quartet of Hans Zimmer doing his film scores, and did a few from Interstellar, which were just amazing. They're such beautiful songs. Yeah, no, I can't praise this film enough.
All right. Get a room, you two.
Me and Hans Zimmer?
Yeah, no, it's a good movie. I love this film as well. We haven't seen The Odyssey yet. Bar from that, I think Interstellar is still Nolan's most ambitious film.
Yeah.
It takes this enormous concept, like in this case it's humanity's survival beyond Earth, and approaches it with this almost obsessive commitment to realism, grounding everything into something that feels real and like believable.
until it really doesn't.
Yeah. Ultimately the film ventures into a territory that's very speculative, you could say, almost metaphysical, but the foundation is firmly rooted in real physics, astrophysics. Kip Thorne was like a consultant on the film. So I think Interstellar, more than any other film in his filmography, is like quintessentially Nolan. It's a very restrained science fiction film, even though the premise is wormholes and distant galaxies. And that's a point of contention for the film. I think I like the realism, but when it comes to like the progression of the story, I wished for the movie to go in a more fantastical direction, maybe.
You wanted to go more fantastical than the time vortex tesseract?
I mean, differently. Like, I will give you an example. Like, they go to a planet and it's water. I don't need aliens, but like give me something a little bit more.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Maybe we could go to another planet where something sort of, out of the ordinary is happening for sure.
It's so grounded. One is a frozen wasteland, and like they don't even go to the other one, and the last one that you see is just rocks. I understand the needs and the want to like ground this vision of interstellar travel into like, like planets are like that. There's planets, there's just water, and this commitment to realism, extends even to the cinematography. Like often we have, instead of having like impossible camera angles that couldn't logistically exist because it's like out in space, you have
Oh,
the camera that it's
I love that though.
I do too.
The locked off camera on the side, because that's how, like, if you would see a NASA space launch, that's
Yeah.
how they film it.
Of course. But, wouldn't you love like a cool shot of
No.
the spacecraft soaring majestically through space? I don't know, like...
Honestly, no. For me, I actually really love the grounded nature of it at the beginning, and it really feels like, oh, this is a realistic take on humans going to try and colonize another planet, and with serious sort of depth of research done in terms of like time travel when you're going from different sort of solar systems, and the mechanics of the spaceship, how everything was continually like, it has that centrifugal force because everything's rotating, so it kind of creates like an anti-gravity within the ship, and the science behind the black hole of it. I think they did their research, and it was all that stuff I found fascinating. I do agree with you. I think because I guess the reveal is that the wormhole and this tesseract of time is put there by humanity from the far, far distant future, right?
Yeah.
And humanity has come to evolve to this point where they're like extra dimensional or interdimensional, and they can do these things. They can like warp space and time. I feel like maybe you could have seeded that as we go to the different colonies, maybe have some evidence of, oh, humans have been here before. Like, oh, that's kind of strange. Like, we've had this journey. Maybe they have a warning from like one of the beings, not like, something like he comes out of thin air and says something, but like there's something left behind, some evidence to sort of seed us in the direction that we're going to end up in a more of a supernatural kind of like fantastical territory. Like, I felt like they could have seeded that throughout the space adventure to try and make it less jarring when we get there in the end. But I don't know, like that ending sequence gets a lot of criticism. It's like, oh, love travels beyond time and space, and it's a bit like hairy fairy with it all. But honestly, I think it works. And the fact that it's, what's the actress's name who plays Murph?
Jessica Chastain.
Yeah, sorry, Jessica Chastain, Matthew McConaughey's daughter.
Murph.
And dude, I mean, the scene where he's gone to that other planet and they've wasted loads of time, and he comes back and he sees the video message from Murph, and he's just Matthew McConaughey is crying his eyes out looking at the screen. That shit hit me so hard, dude. Like, the performance is amazing. Because the film has been so grounded and so realistic to the point, you feel the repercussions of what they've just done. Like, and he has just wasted like 30 odd years of his life with his family back home, and it like that scene is amazing.
That scene is the movie. I think the scene alone justifies the entire premise of the film. Everything Nolan builds beforehand exists to make that emotional payoff possible.
And we've been criticizing Nolan for not being able to do that, but here we probably have one of the best relationships he's ever cultivated in a movie between Matthew McConaughey and Jessica Chastain. And they're not even together for most of it.
I agree. And also because people have criticized Nolan for like, he's fundamentally a very intellectual filmmaker. Like his movies are precise, they're methodical. He's fascinated by systems, by ideas and structure, as we mentioned. So like he's very restrained emotionally. And that's not a criticism, it's just how it does it. That's his artistic personality, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But people have been complaining that his characters were a little bit hollow and a little bit one note, and female characters are not, you don't, portray them as well. And then all of a sudden, Interstellar suddenly becomes this openly sentimental, like
Emotion, the movie.
Love is the answer to the universe's greatest mystery. And like the central relationship is the love between a father and a daughter, the reunion at the end. And it's like Nolan saying, saying, you see, like, I can be emotional. I can put emotions in my movie. I don't know. Like, when we have that scene with Anne Hathaway, she's explaining, oh, love is the one thing that, we can't explain and
Yeah.
draws everything together. And like the word, usually I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. I'm a very sentimental dude, but it feels a little bit, I don't want to say disingenuous because it's not, but like it doesn't feel completely earned in the movie that love is the answer, even though, we're building up to the message that Matthew McConaughey leaves in the library for his daughter to figure out, like...
He puts the coordinates of Morse code into that watch.
I don't know. Interestingly, I've liked Interstellar more every time I've revisited it.
I agree. This is one I loved it the first time I watched it, but yeah, this is one that gets better with subsequent watches.
I mean, I liked it the first time. I mean, it's an amazing cinematic experience. That scene, the sequence with Dr. Mann, Matt Damon back again, ruining the movie. No, I'm kidding. It doesn't ruin the movie, but like, Dr. Mann's planet, the whole sequence where they have to escape, the docking sequence, that is one of the most exhilarating action scenes that I think I've ever witnessed in a fucking movie theater.
That's that, I think a lot of that, like you said, just as you just mentioned, down to that score, that thumping score in those scenes, it gets you so on the edge, so invested.
Yeah. It's breathtaking.
And we were saying about how it's grounded. I don't know how realistic, so I like enjoy those docking scenes where like the main ship is spinning out of control and they're trying to dock their smaller vessel onto it. And Matthew McConaughey is like, he's literally like a rally car race driver, like turning the steering wheel all over the shop, bouncing and smashing all around. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know what friction you're coming up against in space and what you're hitting that's making you bounce all over the place, but it's like some of that when you take yourself out of the emotion and the story, you are like, this is kind of ridiculous.
It is,
but it works.
But it works really well.
He's like, hold on to your horses, everybody. We're going to dock. And he's like, everyone's there. It's like they are literally like on some massive boat trying to sail through the waves.
They got him for the mission specifically because he was the best pilot. Didn't you get that? Michael Caine told you.
And I like the sort of little poem that he recites.
Don't go quietly into that
Don't
good
go
night.
Gently. Don't go gentle into that good night.
Amazing.
And it sort of prevails throughout the movie, and it adds that sort of poetic beauty to the overall film. Yeah, I love this one.
I also love how many years pass in the film, and to make that passage of time clear, they put a little wig on 80 years old Michael Caine, who's supposed to be, I guess, in his 50s when we first meet him, and then in his late 80s at the end of the movie. But yeah, not very convincing at all. Michael Caine, I love you, but you look your age.
He's got a case of the old Benjamin Button in this one, I think.
But yeah, it's visually spectacular movie. I don't fully connect with its emotional conclusions, but I deeply admire the attempt, and it's a very thoughtful blockbuster, which I think it's kind of like the through line here. Like Nolan is famous for big budget, massive movies, but he still instills a lot of heart and thoughtfulness into these productions.
Yeah, I think a lot of other big filmmakers, or if they had brought this script to the studio and they get to that last act and they're like, what? There's going to be a tesseract of memories floating in sort of the nothingness of space.
Of course.
No, we are editing out all of that nonsense. And, again, I commend Nolan for just like the creativity, and the endeavor to produce original stories. And yeah, it's to create something thought-provoking at the end of the day. And it does do that.
It's a great movie.
I'm coming back.
Continued in part 2.